right, so let's get going. What we're going to talk about today is what's the silent killer that's behind our most common diseases and biggest epidemics of our time, in fact, of all time. And what's the oldest and not the best kept secret, but the oldest and simplest method of healing the body. And we're going to discover how we can trigger this healing process using simple food and herbs, but also the power of your mind. And as we mentioned, we might need to take a few notes as we go along. So it's very confusing, isn't it? And I think the internet is largely responsible, but especially social media. I'd be very, very wary of anything you hear or see on social media unless you know it's from a reputable source. And that's really important when it comes to health. So it's a really big area of concern. Even things like AI, ChatGPT, a lot of people are using now to get answers. You have to go and dig in and ask it to give you the source because it's really important to get good information. The health system and the media, I wouldn't say they can't be trusted, but I would say that you've got to do your own research, do your own homework, and don't just take the word of your doctor or health professional at face value and necessarily go ahead with everything that's suggested. This is really important. Our health system is broken and stressed, and it's obviously failing. You know, we've got this increasing wave of diseases that have unidentifiable causes and unknown causes, and also things that are unable to be treated, even with all this rocket science technology. So we've got to really think twice before we go in and go ahead with treatments unless we have tried alternatives first. And this is a really important message, is the mainstream medical system should be a last resort, not a first resort. And so we're going to talk about this a little bit. We've got food, we've got traditional medicines and herbs and healing, and we've also got natural health practitioners around the place. You should always try them first, because oftentimes you can get healing, and that's what we're really looking to achieve. So what the health system is doing is it's using what's called the pharmaceutical model. And that was set up a couple of hundred years ago, originally by the Rockefellers. They instituted the first pharmaceutical businesses and also the first medical training schools. And so ever since then, we've had basically everything else has been outlawed. And to this day, in fact, alternatives and traditional medicines have been outlawed basically by our health system. And I've been involved with that with my previous role as president on the Herbal Association, with regulatory processes over the last couple of decades. And there's some real biases against anything alternative. And the other option we have is obviously surgeries. So between the pharmaceutical route and surgical interventions, nothing much else is being offered to the public. And I think this is a real shame. In New Zealand, with Rongo Maori now being acknowledged, it's probably a rare exception around the world. Now, the secret to healing is, and I think this is really important to note, we'll come back to this later. And by the way, I'm going to talk quite quickly, and I'm going to run through a lot of slides quite quickly. So we will share these slides with you afterwards, and also recording, so you can go back and have a look. The golden rule, or I guess the number one principle of healing is simplicity. And when you think about plants, animals, they usually only suffer disease, and most of the disease that they suffer is when they're around human beings, or humans have interfered with the natural, the pure, and the simple nature of the ecosystem. And so if we can connect with that ourselves, if we can get back to this pure, simple, connected to nature, I guess, what would you call it? A sort of like a framework, you know, if we can live within this framework, then we start to connect to the healing power and the healing energy, because our body wants to heal itself. And this is something that we often think, you know, we've got to have some massive intervention for our body to fix itself. But our body naturally wants to heal itself. We just need to get things out of the way. And especially not just on the physical level, but also mental level. We need to get ourselves out of the way, out of the picture of things, and let things happen without interference. And then when that happens, healing energy starts to sort of swell within us. We start to feel this happening. And this is something people experience with the detoxing and cleansing process. So we'll come back to that. And also DNA is activated. So DNA expresses itself better when these detox processes are taking place. And when that simplicity is taking place, that's been well proven as well through meditation and such. So we'll come back to that too. So I'm just basically, this is a bit of an introductory part of the presentation. So the biggest diseases, the biggest epidemics we spoke about in the beginning, what are these and what's behind the scenes causing these problems? So the most common problems in the world are not, in fact, infectious diseases, not in fact even the latest round of things like COVID or viruses that are affecting the third world, infectious diseases that are killing third world people in third world countries. The biggest epidemics are right here in our backyard, in the well-developed affluent countries. So the UK, the US, Europe, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, but getting into China and India now because of the westernization of the world. And these things are the leading killers. So if you can see my mouse here, cancer, it's top of the chart, but these are annual deaths, by the way. Heart disease and stroke, these two things here are, in fact, cardiovascular disease. And if you add them together, they outstrip cancer by a mile. So cardiovascular disease is the number one problem, or the number one cause of death. Lung diseases, there's a group of lung diseases here, COPD, respiratory tract infection, and cancer. If you add those lung diseases together, they are also right up here. So heart, lung, and cancer, those are the biggest killers. You've got a few infectious diseases here. You've also got diabetes, but those are the three big ones. And there's a direct statistical connection to a condition called metabolic syndrome. You've probably all heard of this. It's not really widely talked about by the medical profession, but it is more and more. And this is because the most common denominators are cholesterol, blood pressure, blood sugar, and weight gain. And you've only got to have two of these at the same time to be classified as having a metabolic disease, metabolic syndrome. And you don't necessarily have to have the obesity. So this is something to be aware of, is you can have high cholesterol, blood sugar, and blood pressure and not have the obesity. And sometimes this can be even worse because you don't really take notice of it. But in saying that, we know that there's a direct link to obesity and heart disease. We know there's a direct link between these things and cancer. And therefore, there's a direct statistical connection between metabolic imbalance and the leading causes of death. And what we want to do is understand why this is happening. And it's happening more and more. So this is the statistics in children, obese children between 2012 and 2017. It leapt up 9% to 37%. And here's some numbers from around the world, just more recent ones, 22 and 23, that show boys and girls 29 to 30 in the 30% ranges of obese. And these are children that are school age, right through the range. And then you've got interesting thing here, Samoa is the highest, but the lowest one is India. And admittedly, their age range, they haven't captured quite a broad range. So it's probably a little bit higher, but India is the lowest. And it's one of the things we recommend on our diet plans when detoxing is a lot of curry and a lot of spicy food, because it's known that the Asian diets are higher in these herbs and spices. And it's also known they had much lower incidences of these metabolic problems. So that's just a bit of background. The leading causes of death, cancer and heart disease. Metabolic syndrome is the most common denominator. And I should also mention metabolic syndrome was the most common denominator in COVID deaths, which is another interesting fact. There's an immune system and immune response link. And remember, the lungs were the third group of problems that are causing death. So there's a cluster here. There's a little cluster going on, and this is what we need to address. Our children are on the same path. In fact, they're looking at worse outcomes than adults these days, if it keeps going the way it's going. And all we're doing is we're dishing out drugs, and we're dishing them out in the billions. This is 4 billion prescriptions in the USA alone. That's unbelievable. And the side effects of drugs often means that another drug needs to be prescribed to counter the side effects of a drug. And then you end up with a cascade or a cocktail, we call it, of drugs. And they don't really know the long-term side effects of a cocktail of drugs. And most of us end up on some kind of cocktail as we get into our 50s, 60s, and beyond. And we need to avert this and get off these medications wherever possible. And I know that that's a tough call sometimes. And it's quite often the case that your doctor says you shouldn't have certain foods when you're on the medications, when in fact those foods are the things that can help you get off the medications. So it's a bit of a challenge. We've got an ambulance at the bottom of the cliff system. The drugs they use at preventatives are things like statins, whereas and they're absolutely terrible. I've seen terrible outcomes with people on those for cholesterol. But they're basically saying that everybody should go on statins over the age of 45, regardless of their cholesterol levels, because there's such a broad pattern of this high cholesterol pattern, and obviously that's metabolic disease. It's bad medicine. It really is. We're not teaching our public how to look after themselves. We're not really doing anything on a dietary front. We're not using traditional healing or herbal medicines as part of our system. And we are basically poisoning the population with drugs. And then, the mortality rates show that at the end of the day, that it's just not working. And the holistic model, the traditional model, we call it, there's modern medicine and traditional medicine. I always like to think of the two in that way. Whereas a lot of people will think traditional means going into the mainstream system. And I know they can save your life, and we need things like antibiotics sometimes. We'll need, surgery sometimes. Not knocking it when it's necessary, it's miraculous. But the general ethos, the general approach, the philosophy behind it is what's letting us down. So let's go into the next section, which is toxins. Now, this is where I want you to make a list. So see if you can come up with half a dozen things as we go through these. Are any of these toxins affecting you? A toxin is something that gets in your body and interferes with your proper biochemistry. So just like a toxic person gets in the way and starts interfering with everybody's conversation or peace, that's what a toxin does. It interferes with the communication systems in your body, the chemical processes, and these toxins can sneak up on you over a long period of time. We all know that you don't die from smoking one cigarette. You get lung cancer from smoking a packet of cigarettes a day for 30 years. And so it's the same with all other toxins that cause these metabolic problems in our body, is they don't affect us, or they might affect us a little bit, but the disease process, the metabolic disease process, can take decades. And that's why the statistics show, that we start getting unhealthy at a certain age after a certain period of time, depending on our lifestyles. And I call it the boiling frog effect. And this means that the analogy is, and don't try it at home, by the way, is you take a frog and you put it in a pot of cold water and it will happily swim around. You turn the element on and the pot will gradually heat up and the frog will adapt to the temperature change. It's a bit like when you have a bath and you put more hot water in it. You can keep getting it hotter and hotter, but the frog won't jump out. The water will boil and the frog will die. And this is the effect of toxins. It's similar. We adapt, we adjust, the water keeps getting hotter. The toxin levels in our body keep getting higher. And the disease process suddenly hits us like it just happened overnight, but it didn't. Does it make sense? It's really important to remember that. And so even if you quit a bad habit or change one of these things, if we look at some of these things, it can take a little bit of time to reverse a process in your body. And we're going to look at 4 categories: food, drugs, environment, and stress. We'll touch on stress towards the end. So your body takes nutrients in through, this is a developing fetus, and the nutrients to the fetus come in through this umbilical cord, through this tube, which we call the digestive tract or the alimentary canal. And nutrients come in through there. And you can see these little things that are springing up in the fetus are actually going to develop into the digestive organs. And they're there right from the very, very beginning. And so these organs develop, and instead of nutrients coming in through the tube, they start coming in through the mouth. And basically the same principle. It has to go all the way through the system, and then it goes actually from there to the liver, which I think is really interesting. It doesn't go straight into your bloodstream. It goes from your digestive system straight to your liver. The only thing that goes into circulation are the fats, but they go into your lymphatic system. So the liver's got a massive job. And we'll come to the liver a little bit later on. Digestive disorders are affecting 50% of the population. So you might have noticed over your time on the earth that somebody has suffered one of these things, probably more than one. Crohn's disease, these are USA numbers, the easiest ones to get, but you can extrapolate those. That's like 1 in 6 people. This one here is more like 1 in 20. Irritable bowel syndrome. That's about 1 in 20 people as well. Gastric ulcers. Yeah, this is more like 1 in 6. Chronic constipation. So that means not going to the toilet more than 3 times a week. Should be going every day. If you're not going more than 3 times a week, then over the long term, that's going to cause a build-up in your body. Here again, 1 in 5 people, acid reflux. This is the most common condition on earth, and the most commonly prescribed drug is antacid on the planet. So let's look at some of the toxins. Foods. So processed foods are possibly the biggest category of toxins that we introduce on a daily basis as a general population, because there's thousands of different additives in these foods. They're packaged in such a way that they're designed to sit on the shelf, and we'll talk about shelf life again, is that the shelf life is the problem, because they're not designed to be broken down, basically. These foods are chemically preserved. Then they've got these added fats, sugars, artificial fake sugar. So things like corn syrup, fructose, modified cornstarches. These artificial sugars can actually be far worse than sugar itself. And they're used to fill a lot of products, and sometimes they won't even put the name of them on there. They'll put a number. And this is even more misleading. They're addictive, and the food's packaged in a way to get you hooked. And that's the whole design of manufactured foods in the supermarket. So not just the packaging is designed to sell you the product, but the product itself is designed to get you hooked on because of a bliss effect. They call it the bliss point. If they can get you to get a hit from the food, then they've got you hooked. Even breakfast cereals or bread, even those things are designed in the same way. Very carefully designed, by the way. So anything that's got a processed sugar, processed fat component is definitely going to lead to metabolic syndrome if those are introduced on a daily basis. So keep that one in mind. That's possibly the number one thing that we can do, is avoid those. Ultra processed foods include more than just those things. This is a study of 45,000 adults. This was done in France, by the way, in 2019. They studied adults over 45 for 9 years, and they found that there was a direct link between intake of ultra processed food. So ultra processed food has over 30% content of it is either those processed sugars or fats or some kind of filler or additives. So, and they're broken down and preserved in packages. That's one easy way to identify them. But these foods increase the risk of early death from all causes, but especially cancer and cardiovascular disease. And they've done surveys in New Zealand supermarkets and found that 75% of all the products in the supermarket are ultra processed foods. So you've got to work pretty hard to avoid them. You might say a can of baked beans is not ultra processed, but the source that it's in is. And so it's very easy to get fooled into thinking you're having healthy foods. These foods include bread. Most bread is ultra processed food. Unless you can go and get sourdough from a bakery, that's what I suggest. Don't get bread from the supermarket. Breakfast cereal. And again, it's hard to get breakfast cereal that is really wholesome. So I'd recommend getting organic if you can, breakfast cereal, and or avoiding breakfast cereal and having smoothies, which we'll talk about a bit later. Instant noodles. That's really popular, and that's a really dangerous food. Processed meats, fish and chicken nuggets, and chips and sugary drinks and sweets. So they're pretty obviously high in sugar. But those are just examples. What surprised me is the bread and breakfast cereal and noodles. They're very common foods. And the wheat products are often sprayed with Roundup in New Zealand. This is on the MPI New Zealand's website if you want to look it up. It's not recommended, but they do it because it makes the grain easy to harvest. And so a lot of this, there's been cases of people suing companies because they've got cancer from the Roundup. Acid-forming food. Here's another category of toxin. This is one we don't often think of, but acidity is directly linked with cancer, and it's directly linked with inflammation in the body. And I'll share a few other things. Meat is the primary source of acid. Protein is anything that's high protein is going to acid load your body. So even nuts, cheese, eggs, a lot of protein, and you will acid load your body, and it's responsible for triggering cancers in the body. So be wary of cancer, be wary of acid. So we know alkalizing as a treatment approach for cancer patients is alkalize. And so if you want to protect yourself, look at alkalizing your diet. And you can find information on our website. It looks after your gut health. And I'm going to have to speed up. I think I'm going a little bit too slow. So forgive me if I go fast. Leaky gut syndrome, if you get inflammation and acid and processed foods, eventually the gut membrane becomes inflamed and it starts to leak and you get particles in your blood which trigger immune responses. So there's an easy explanation for autoimmune diseases, which are often things like Crohn's disease. What causes it? We don't know. They say it's autoimmune. So there's a simple explanation for that. Let's look at the liver. The liver is a central hormonal hub in your body that helps to regulate almost everything. The thyroid, cortisol metabolism, sex hormones, fat tissue, skeletal muscle, brain, blood sugar, cholesterol. We know it does all of these things. It's an endocrine organ. So it's not just it's an endocrine gland as well as an organ. So it's an organ and a gland. I think it's the only one in your body that does both. And the liver, we know the liver's a real problem because fatty liver disease is up to 20 to 30% of the general population. Can you believe it? And fatty liver means that the liver is becoming congested with fats, and toxins are held in those fats, and it loses control of the body's metabolism. So we've done a separate webinar on liver detoxification, but there's a lot of signs of liver toxins. The most common one is just chronic fatigue and foggy brain. That means your liver needs a cleanse. And household solvents and chemicals in the workplace are the biggest contributor to liver toxicity, apart from pharmaceutical drugs. So drug-induced liver damage is basically the simplest drug you can get is Panadol, the most common one, paracetamol. That's liver toxic. And the reason you don't have more than 2 every 4 hours is because if you do, your liver will start to fail, and you get it damages the liver severely, and you can have liver failure. And anything over and above that, any pharmaceutical drug that's more complex, is more difficult for the liver to process, which was just about every other pharmaceutical drug, can cause drug-induced liver injury. So I would make a list of your drugs, and anything that, if you're taking any medications that you can look at alternatives for, is start doing that. And you might find some of the things that the detox program can help address may help get you off medications. We have seen that happen. So 328,000 patients in USA and Europe die every year from properly prescribed pharmaceutical drugs from their doctor, not drug overdoses. You know, Elvis and Michael Jackson were just following their prescription. Tom Petty, Prince, these are big names, but there's hundreds of thousands every year die in the same way. But don't overlook your nutraceuticals. And this is natural products. So these are products that are prescribed often by naturopaths. And some of these are just as potent and can be just as toxic to the body if you take a lot of them. And this is something important to remember, is a lot of these supplements are not natural at all. Most vitamins are made in a laboratory. Most vitamins are synthetic. And unless you buy a herbal product that's just a herbal powder, what you're taking is a synthetic product. And so therefore the liver will struggle. And I've seen a lot of clients come in with, I'm taking 20 different supplements, and they think they're doing a great, wonderful thing for their body. But the problem there is the liver has to struggle with them just like pharmaceuticals, and the kidneys. So if you're taking herbs, you either do a small dose for a long, long time, or you do a big dose for a short term. That's what the detox is. But taking a lot for a long time is not a good idea. So just something to think about as well, because they can cause liver and kidney problems. So kidney problems usually come from acid, and that's because your kidneys deal with eliminating the acid in the way of urea and your urine. And if your body's become acidic and you've had too much protein in your diet, what will happen is your bones will start dumping calcium, and your bones will dump calcium to try and alkalize, because calcium's an alkaline mineral, and you end up with kidney stones. And it's been well documented. Acidic diets lead to calcium deposits in the body, and kidney stones are usually made from calcium. So gout, another acid problem. This is why I recommend when you detox, you have no protein. Basically, you starve your body of protein. You can have a bit of yogurt, perhaps, as a way of getting some. And we do put a little bit of pea protein in the blend just to keep your protein there. But there's no meat, no nuts, no eggs, no protein. And so what this will do is rapidly alkalize your body and detox the kidneys, and basically help to heal the whole entire body. So aches and pains, specifically arthritic pains and joint pains, can go very, very fast. And I will give you these slides so you can look back on any of the things that you've missed. But what I really want to get to is the detox. So I'm going to skip a little bit through these other toxins. Chlorine in your water. It's very good to put a water filter on your water or get a jug. We sell these things called alka jugs, which alkalize the water and take all the minerals out and heavy metals out. Arsenic, that comes in groundwater as well. And basically, water from the town supply, I would just completely avoid it if you can. And filter it. Make sure you filter it at least. Last category, I think there might be one more, is parasites. So it's important to address parasites in the gut. If you've ever had antibiotics, if you've had too much processed food or meats, then it's more than likely you get an imbalance of the gut microbiome and pick up some kind of parasite, whether it's worms or it's Campylobacter or Helicobacter or H. pylori or Candida, you name it. These are all parasites that start to thrive in an unhealthy gut. So if you've got gut disturbances, then any of these things considered that as well. Parasites are a part of the treatment that we do. So the respiratory system, the lungs, are under huge amount of stress. Asthma is a huge problem worldwide. COPD is becoming more and more common as a cause of death, as you saw in that list in the beginning. That's a chronically obstructed lungs. And pneumonia is the most common cause of death in hospitals. When people get in there, they're with some other problem, that's often it's pneumonia that takes them out. So these lung toxins are chemicals that are in our environment, and we know there's cleaners and sprays contain carcinogens, all of these body care products. So this is another thing you might want to add to your list. If you've got anything in your home that you possibly inhale or get on your skin, as in a body care product or a cleaning product, try to find something organic or simple. So water and vinegar is a great cleaning agent, for example. Aloe vera and coconut oil, things like that, tea tree oil on your skin, natural herbal products. Air pollution, there's not a lot we can do apart from getting out and into the fresh air, the beach and the trees as often as possible. These sprays that are around, we live in the Bay of Plenty, and there's sprays, they blow around from the orchards, and we get them in the air that we breathe. And it's known that these causes of death occur a lot more around industrialized areas, around roadways, and there's a direct link to almost the same pattern of causes of death caused by air pollution, which I think is fascinating. There's a direct sort of pattern there. And these are ear, nose, and throat problems that you'll get from environmental toxins, most commonly. There are others. I mean, for example, arsenic, you might get arsenic from doing fencing or being around timber, and you can get arsenic poisoning. But most commonly, the things that we can avoid are in our own home. And there's just a quick recap of toxins. So I hope you've got something on your list. Tobacco we know about, weight and obesity, these are causes of cancer, by the way. Diet, alcohol, radiation, prescription drugs, and pollution. So this is from the American Association for Cancer Research. The surprising one is that weight and obesity and diet are basically top of the list below tobacco as causing cancer. And it's one thing we find with detoxing, people normally lose 5 to 10 kgs in 2 weeks, which is fantastic. There's a snapshot list of the toxins we went through. And yeah, have we all drunk the Kool-Aid? I think this analogy is that we're being sold these products. We've been sold into this lifestyle by business, by big business and manufacturers. And that's why we feel like this half the time. Half of us do, I think. You wake up in the morning and you bounce out of bed feeling full of energy. I think not. It's maybe when you're young, but it changes, doesn't it? And that's an incremental change that takes place. And why aren't we being told? Why doesn't anybody tell us about toxicity, metabolic disease, and the link between that and the leading causes of death? And why do they just keep pumping us full of more and more drugs as a solution when that's actually poisoning us further? It's add poisons to poisons and you're going to get better? No, I don't think so. At the end of the day, we end up having to make a decision. We're going to continue or we're going to change. And so the challenge tonight is, let's look at a detox, and I'll go through. We've got about 20 minutes, so we might end up going a couple of minutes over, but I'll stick around for questions after that. So health is what we call balance, homeostasis in clinical medical texts is the fancy name for balance. And it means every system in your body is trying to maintain a balance. So you breathe in and out, your heart beats to keep your blood pressure, your kidneys are trying to keep your acid levels equal. Everything's got to remain in balance. And so this is how detoxing heals. I'm going to go through part 1 now and part 2 right at the very end. Detoxing helps you to find peace. And it's practiced as a method of simplifying and purifying throughout the world and throughout all time. In fact, you can trace it right back in history. Detoxing's been used for thousands of years. And what it does is it takes this energy that can be locked up inside us, um, because of complex things that we've introduced to our body, and simplifies it down and allows that energy to be liberated from inside us. And so the reason we feel tired is because of weight. And this is a really interesting thing to understand, is that this complex energy is heavy. And so when you've got a lot on your plate, it's interesting how we use these terminologies in our lives. When you've got the world on your shoulders, when you've got a heavy heart, these things that we always use weight as a term for not feeling well. We feel heavy. And that's because energy takes form, and it takes form in a complex way until it's processed. And it's the same as digestion. You have to break it down, take the good and eliminate the bad. And this is where we struggle as human beings. We don't always take the good. We struggle with the bad. You know what I'm saying? So we need to take the good and let go of the bad. Forget it, let it go. And when we do that, we start to heal. And it's this really simple principle: forgiveness, empathy. This is an energetic level that detoxing heals, because the reason we get addicted to things is an emotional habit that we form, is because we're trying to avoid something or cover something, or get away from something which we don't want to deal with or face. And so when you detox, it does challenge you to face those things, to face your demons, if you like, to look inward. And so the whole energy flow is downward to ground. And that's why we talked right in the very beginning about connecting with nature and the healing energy of nature. All energy goes to the ground. And this is crucial to understand. If you don't ground yourself, it's lightning and electricity go into the ground for a reason. And the ground is layered, layers upon layers, going back thousands of years, because everything has ended up in the ground. And that's where the energy goes. It goes from above and it goes down. And when people do a cleanse or a detox or meditate or combine these things together, they have a wonderful experience of energy coming down on them and energy leaving in a downward direction. And part of it goes down the toilet, which is a wonderful experience, I must say. When you do a cleanse, a lot goes down the toilet, and you can kind of let go of toxins on a physical level, an emotional level, and a mental level. And what this can do is upgrade your DNA. In other words, it can activate and trigger expression of DNA, which has otherwise been switched off. So people can say they feel younger, they feel clearer, they have better energy levels, more peace. All of these things can happen. And so it's been well shown, well proven, that good, things that you put into your body can affect your regulate your genes. And this is your phenotype. This is you. And the certain amount that you inherit, but a lot is to do with what you do environmentally. So what you put in, what you think, the situations you're around. And there's a scientific explanation for that through the telomeres, that the chromosomes and the DNA, they actually pick up what's going on in the environment, and they express it by increasing the length of the telomeres, or the little antenna that they have on them. So DNA is a receiver and a transmitter. Really interesting. And that's part of how detoxing heals your body. But we'll do part two a little bit later on. Fasting and cleansing, there's a theory called autophagy. Well, it's actually been proven that when you do periods of fasting, that there's an important process that happens inside the cells where they go into auto-digestion of toxins within the cells. So damaged parts of the cells can be repaired. And toxins, these are the damaged parts, which we won't go into because it's quite in depth. But basically what goes on inside the cells is a process of auto-digestion of what they call garbage, intercellular garbage, what's inside the cells. So the DNA, again, it can be triggered because it gets a better signal signal, basically, a clearer pathway. And it's another principle behind detoxing is the simplest thing in the world is usually correct. And what we do as human beings is we overthink everything, we overcomplicate everything. And if we just kept things simple, we'd be a lot happier, a lot healthier. And this is a trick once you get into it, is the complex solution to health is not necessarily the right solution. The simplest solution is usually the right one. That's my message. And that's what detoxing is. It's a process of simplifying. So what I'm going to do now, the last 15 minutes or so, is show you the food and the process that we go through to detox. It's a combination of the food, the healing food, the medicinal herbs, which are important because these do the big things, and then using this power of your mind as well. You put the three together and you've got a powerful structure. If you miss one of these out, it doesn't quite stand up. So we use herbs to cleanse the colon, the liver, to pull heavy metals out of the body, which can be lodged, to knock any parasites there. And we use a high fiber diet with a lot of enzymes and alkalizing food to restore the gut health and to rebuild the gut health. And here's some of the food. So I love this AI that you can create these images with. You just tell it what you want. So I listed all these foods and it came out with this beautiful picture. So lots of vegetables, lots of fruit, lots of soups, salads, lots of fresh food that is really easily digested. And it's plant-based. So we're 100% plant-based on the detox. But we do avoid nuts and grains and legumes because they are a bit harder to break down and they are higher in protein. So we're just trying to get really alkalized and really have a soft, easy, quick digestive process. Enzymes are really important. You can have honey. Honey is great because it's full of enzymes. It helps your digestion. You can have yogurt. Again, it's full of the good bacteria, so easy to digest. We need a lot of enzymes introduced from our food to help speed up our whole body's metabolism. And if we go organic, it'll work even better because organic food has up to 10 times the antioxidants and minerals sometimes as well. So super nutrients. And this is another great AI image. I was asked it to represent organic digestion as composting. So when you use these kind of foods, they're the foods that you could put on your compost. And the idea is if you understand digestion properly, it really is decomposition and composting. So the food you put in comes out the other end as manure, doesn't it? It's broken down into waste, and you've just sucked the nutrients out of it. And so when you're doing the alkaline diet, fruit and vegetables are super high in potassium, which is the alkalizing mineral, opposing the protein, which contains the acid loading content. So fruit and vegetables to alkalize, and these are some of the alkalizing foods. Cucumber, fantastic. Celery, amazing. You just can't have too much of these foods when you're detoxing. Beetroot protects the liver, protects the blood and the heart. Grapefruit, again, it's a fantastic liver food. It's a weight loss food, by the way. Fermented vegetables, fantastic for your gut health. You can snack on these any of these foods right through the program as much as you want. So chili is incredible for taking away cravings. It helps endorphin levels in your body and it takes away pain in the gut. And so it helps with this kind of emotional process of detoxing. And so a lot of curries, a lot of chilies are recommended. Onions, powerful anti-inflammatory. Mushrooms to boost your immune system. So again, anti-inflammatory. Another powerful anti-inflammatory is turmeric. So throw this into everything if you can while you're doing it. I would put a lot of it into pumpkin soup because you don't even notice it. And the soup looks incredible. And then there's the smoothies. So the powder we give you, you can use the capsules that you can throw into smoothies. And smoothies for breakfast every day on your detox. And by the way, we're only talking a couple of weeks. So this is not forever. although I would recommend doing smoothies for breakfast long term. And these are some of the smoothies. We have a stomach cleansing smoothie, a brain smoothie. That stomach one's got papaya, pawpaw, and pineapple, which is really nice. This one's turmeric and lemon and gotu kola. Beetroot and grapefruit for the liver smoothie. You can have dessert. So this is an avocado, cacao, and berries. You can make a chocolate mousse. Lots of salads. And only thing not to have in your salads really is the seeds. You don't put any sunflower seeds or anything like that in your salads, or nuts. But everything else that you can have in a salad is great. And here's a few of the salads. You come with the recipe that we give: roast veggies, avocado, eggs. You normally would only have eggs if you're doing a 30-day cleanse. You try to avoid those on the 2-week cleanse. Beetroot salad. This is you can't see the kumara underneath. Smashed avo on kumara, capsicum, mushrooms, pea shoot. This is beautiful food. When you start having it, you don't feel like you're missing out at all. Chinese sweet and sour. All the green vegetables you can have, as much as you like, any way, shape, or form. And soups. So this is really good for the winter. Pumpkin soup, tomato leek, kumara soup, sort of in any vegetable soups, but these are the ones we give you recipes for: Thai curry, coconut curries, cauliflower curries. This is a beautiful one: mushroom stroganoff, mushrooms and garlic. And then there's plenty of snack foods. So it's funny when you say to people you can't have meat, bread, or processed foods, they go, well, what am I going to eat? That's a common response you get. I don't realize that there's actually a whole kingdom of food that you can have on a detox. And what happens with this food is there's the meal planner which you get with it, and we've got links to all of these recipes on video, which I've done for you as well. So you've got plenty of ideas and advice on food for the whole plan. Now, herbal medicine, there's 2 ways of doing it. Wise woman tradition, this is more gentle and more long-term and more nurturing, which is great for the long term. I highly recommend doing gradual, gentle, and nurturing for long term. And then you've got the heroic, which is more the male approach, and that is you blast something and you do it hard and fast. And this is Ewan McGregor, I think. But that the idea with heroic herbal medicine is you do a big dose, and this is what I'm doing with the detox is heroic. But I do suggest the wise woman long-term gentle maintenance plan in between times. So you only do this for 2 weeks. And if you're a first timer, you might want to do it slowly over a month. And if you've got a health concern. These are the herbs, and we don't have time to go into them all, but you'll get this slide and you'll be able to see all the herbs. So what I'm going to do is give you a quick look at these herbs. This is broken down into the 4 bottles. So psyllium and slippery elm. This isn't the first one for your colon. Cascara and Turkey rhubarb. Fennel, cloves, black walnut, and wormwood, which are your anti-parasitics. So you're doing anti-parasitic and bowel purging with that one. Then you've got your digestive support, which is peppermint, fennel, ginger, cayenne, kiwi fruit, pineapple, and papaya for enzymes, and licorice for gut healing. And each one of these has 120 capsules, and we say during the plan, you take 10 of each a day. So that's the heroic dose. That's 40 capsules a day. But the powder is a bit easier because it's 2 big scoops of powder. There's the liver herbs: milk thistle, dandelion, barley grass, clove artichoke, golden seal. Cilantro and chlorella are there for heavy metal. They've been shown to get the heavy metals when you use them together. And then the last one is the bulk fiber laxative, which has got psyllium husk, chia seeds, aloe vera, and slippery elm. So the 24 fantastic herbs. And I've sort of developed and refined this over the last 25 years, but it's about the 3rd edition, and it's been tweaked a couple of times. There's a QR code there. If you want to, you can scan that, and that'll take you straight to it. That's for the capsule version. And like I said, you'll get these slides later anyway. There's the drink version that's got all the herbs in one pot together. And you take 2 scoops a day, which is equivalent to the 40 capsules. And this can seem a lot easier for people because you just take the scoop of powder into your smoothie and you almost don't know you've had it. And but the effect is the same. In fact, it can be slightly more because you're putting the herbs into a liquid and they can swell up and be absorbed and get down through your body quicker. So you use a 500 gram of herbal powder in the 2 weeks, which is a huge dose of herbs. And the reason we do it is because we want to see what we do guarantee is blood test results. So you can go to your doctor and test your liver function, kidney function, cholesterol, liver enzymes, inflammatory markers, and all those things, blood sugar markers, and they should all improve, especially if they're slightly off where they should be. I've never seen that not happen. So it's very interesting that it does. And that just shows actually when you do this kind of diet and herbs, the impact it can have on the metabolic syndrome, the underlying problem, the gut health, the liver function, all these things that are central to keeping us healthy. So the stage there's a preparation stage of usually 3 to 7 days, because that's the sort of time it takes to get your head around. What I recommend doing is emptying the fridge and the pantry of all the processed food or anything that you think you may not be allowed on the program, especially the fridge. It's always good to have a clear fridge, maybe even clean the fridge out, get the shopping list and go to the organic shop and get a few things, and try to just really get yourself well prepared. It's good to have a week to do that. 3 days minimum. And then there's also 3 days of diet. So you need to actually get that diet worked out before you start the herbs, because you don't want to throw the herbs into your body when there's still a couple of days worth of, whatever you might have had, pizza or whatever's in the body. It needs to be eliminated first. So you do the diet for 3 days and then you introduce the herbs. And we recommend staging that. So the first day, we'll say no meat. The second day, we would say no processed carbs. And the third day, no other processed food at all. And then by that stage, you're ready to go. And you can basically start using the herbs, making your smoothie in the morning, looking at the recipes through the day. And within a couple of days, things start happening. And I mean, they should start really happening. And some people, it starts happening on day 1. For some people, it's day 5. It just depends on your body, but within a couple of days normally. There's a weight management program. Often people go onto that as a follow-up. And we have one called Body Tune, which has got all the detox herbs and all the weight slimming herbs, the weight loss herbs in one. And this is the one you can use long term in just a scoop a day in a smoothie. And that's a maintenance plan. So that's the wise woman approach we talked about. And of course, diet. The great thing about this is it does trigger changes in your diet. I think we're just going to go 5 minutes over, if that's okay, everybody, and then we'll open up to questions. There's the whole package. There's the detox capsules and the drink, and then there's the slim capsules and the body tune drink. And there's a couple of books we have available. There's the book on the detoxing, which covers a lot of what we cover tonight. And then there's the book on the energy healing, which gives you the power to really work on healing yourself with energy. And we've got a coupon there for you tonight. If you're, if you're visiting us for the first time, you can use this 10% coupon over the next 7 days. So just make a note of that, DNH24, Detox and Heal Yourself 24. And if you're a VIP, you obviously get half price off already. If you're not a VIP, then that's even better. You can join us as a member and get half price off all those products. And you'll see that on the website. So the power of change. This is really a massive thing. And I recommend choosing something off your list. Doesn't have to be half a dozen things. It can be one thing that when you come out the other end of a detox, that you have got for life. And I recommend doing this once a year and then choosing one more thing off the list. And especially the habit things, the things that are habitual, the little things, and switching them for something, and taking the bad thing or the thing you shouldn't, and choosing the new thing, the thing you should, that you haven't been doing, and just doing a bit of a switch around, and then carry on for another year. It depends. Some people do it twice a year, just want to make faster progress, but once a year is enough, because after 10 years, then you've really made a difference. And you remember the frog boiling effect, the incremental toxin effect? You put it into reverse. And that happens 10, 20 years down the line, the payoff, the real payoff, when you look back. And that's what it's all about. So just a little bit, just to finish off part two, how detoxing heals part two. And this is a bit of revision. We nurture our detox systems, our liver, our kidneys, our bowels, our lungs, they're all detox systems. We avoid environmental toxins, so we become more aware of possible toxins in our life. We look after our digestive health, our gut health, which is central to everything. It also boosts our immune function. So we become more resilient against disease. And by the way, cancer is a failure of the immune system. So the immune system should hit it before it becomes any problem. And that's an immune function. Really, really important. Healthier skin, and this is largely due to acid levels in the tissues being reduced by alkalizing. And also less pain and aches and pains and inflammation, alkalizing again. Metabolic energy. So obviously once we detox the liver and that whole hormonal system can be communicating properly again in the body, we get increased metabolic energy. Better gut health, better food absorption, better nutrient assimilation, clarity and peace. So this comes about through the emotional mental effect of detoxing, and the energetic effect of it is people find they can meditate better, they have better dreams, the intuition and all that becomes clearer, subtle messages, and the gut-brain connection is a big thing. So there's that depression, anxiety loop with the gut. And if you can resolve that, you can be a lot happier when after a cleanse, after gut health reset. Healthy weight. It's another really nice benefit of detoxing is often 5 to 10 kilos. I've done it myself for 25 years, and every time I lose about 4 or 5 kilos, and it gradually creeps back on over the year, and then I lose it again. And it's a good one, because it is known that we, on average, the average adult in the population gains 1 kilo per year after the age of 30. And I did a survey once of 120,000 people, and I got their weight and their age, and it was exactly that. Every year they gained a kilo, and by the age of 70, they'd gained 30 kilos, and that was the average age of death, 72. So it just it sort of correlated, if that makes sense. Chronic disease. So this is your heart, cholesterol, blood sugar, all of those things, cancer. It helps protect the body from chronic diseases. And I would also venture to say that the brain is part of that, because we know that the brain accumulates toxins in the form of plaque, in the brain, and it's largely can be prevented by things like the spicy herbs, the turmeric, the chili, the things that get circulation in the brain. So doing a cleanse allows that, and it helps improve that. And the DNA, remember we talked about DNA activation, this is part of it, protection for long life. And the last reason to do it, reason 12, is it helps to trigger better long-term lifestyle habits. And that's why personally, I think why I invented it, because I'm one of these, I think I have an addictive personality as a youngster, and I know that it's helped me curb my habits over the years. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. I've still got, and this is another great thing. You'll never be perfect. You'll always be on a journey, and there'll always be something else that you need to tackle. And so I sort of offer you this challenge. Is it time to take the next step on your journey? I'm here to help you. And if you do decide to go on one of our programs, you get my personal guidance and support on a daily basis. And so we give daily email coaching. Also got the live chat, and I'm available to answer any questions there. So there's a list of the conditions that we spoke of, and there might be a couple more that we didn't speak of, but these are the ones that we've seen results with the detox program. And if it's not complete resolution, it's often quite a significant reduction, and that inspires the change to take hold and to continue with. So we do a 100% guarantee that you'll be satisfied with our programs. And like I said, the blood test thing is there as a great way to validate that.